Priory People, the piece itself, is a piece of theatre as an end product, but it's actually really it's a heritage project, a project that has many partners. In this case, it's a theatre company, a production company with a public museum. South End Museums are partners in this particular project, and then finding educational opportunities and extending those out into the community. This is about bringing the heritage of this particular building and raising awareness of family life at that particular time in history. The Priory Priory has been occupied since, well, early Norman times. It was a priory originally where monks lived. The building here is now a museum for the public to visit, and the family that we've been working at, the story is about, called the Scrattons, owned this building for centuries, absolute centuries, and it was at this period in time, around about 1914, the building left their possession. Coming back to the place they used to live in, they've grown up now, and they're having a family reunion. And the purpose of this reunion is to relive old memories, and the one way of accessing those old memories and bringing back how things were for them in this building was via a document called the Priory Times, which, for want of a better word, was a newspaper. And of course, at this period of time in history in Edwardian, newspapers were the latest thing. They're extremely, extremely popular. The family actually wrote this newspaper. But it's mainly fiction. Short stories, most of them gory.
It is so wonderful to see everyone together again. I know we've all gone in our different directions and got our careers and our own lives, but
that's enough, Mother. Your house is all in tears.
Obsessed with ghosts. Maybe they believe this house itself is haunted.
And I have here the Priory Times.
We could tell our own theatre of entertainment right here.
Yes.
Tell our stories and take part in them and relive our past all at the same time.
What a superb way to get the memories flowing.
Yes, if we could stand it.
Oh, come on, you. It sounds to me like it'd be great fun.
We've made the story much easier for people to really get into and looked at the lives of the people who lived here. So we've looked very much at the monks and also the Scratton family, a wealthy family who owned the Priory for some time. And that obviously is the heart of the Pinpoint project. We're basically talking for the monks, you're talking through the sort of Tudor era and earlier, because this was on the properties that was destroyed by Henry VIII. And with the Scrattons, you're talking late Victorian and through the Edwardian period, right up to and through basically World War I. Here we're able to show people monastic life from a different aspect. We've got some lovely interpretation of the monks' life, how they communicate and things like that. And with the Scrattons we've got some wonderful room settings, so people can see Victorian rooms as they were, and we've got editions of the Priory Times, which is a lovely scrapbook newspaper really put together by the Scratton family, the Scratton children, to show their fun and games, their life as it were. Well, what it's been enabled us to do is to really bring a different perspective to our interpretation of the Priory. We very much look at Victorian family life, and we do interpret the Scrattons. What they've managed to do is to very much bring, I think, the family itself to life. The actors, they've really brought life to the family, which we couldn't really do in the same way before.
When we first approached the idea of working in this building, and it became a site-specific piece, this is exactly where the Scrattons lived, and this is exactly where we're putting on this piece of theatre. The first thing that crossed particularly my mind was when walking around the building, we must use the building in some way and actually let the building be a character in the actual play itself and speak for itself. So in terms of the format for the piece, there's a lovely foyer section in this house, and and various rooms that split off from the foyer, and a large hall, which used to be a monk's refectory where they used to eat. It was evident that we needed to conclude, or at least put the bulk of the piece in that great hall, a big meeting place where everyone could feel, yes, we're part of something here. But we decided to use a couple of smaller rooms for the audience to witness the servants section, the section which doesn't pertain to the main narrative but gives us an insight into what life was like in this house. Perfect opportunity. And so at one point in the piece, we split the audience up into a couple of rooms to witness the exact same piece of script happening. And it's a piece of script that works like a loop. It keeps going and going and going until something else happens that moves the audience on.
Be a good girl now, Casey. Get me another glass, would you?
I don't think I should.
Oh, but you should. You see, a man's got to keep his strength up and his thirst at bay.
And this particular looped section involves the talents of 17 and 18-year-old students of drama who are studying a BTEC course at the local South Essex College.
You being so strong. Do you know why you're laughing? You ain't much better.
And we've extended this opportunity to approximately 40 students who in turn, on each day of the performance, will have a chance to play a servant scene in one of the rooms of their choosing, as they've been able to be a part of a piece of theatre throughout a whole week, growing and evolving, and doing a really important job, which is pretty much opening the performance too.
Ow! I bet you took first prize.
Well, they're new students. They've been with us for just under 6 weeks. It straight away gave new students who have literally just come from school the experience of creating not only a character but working with a professional team. I think I've spoken to every single actor and everyone has got something different out of it. Even if it's just confidence or just an awareness of working with a professional team. So they've each got their own different outlook on it, but it's been very, very positive.
The one that makes me smile is the oldest lad, Jeffrey. Slim Jim, they call him.
Because he's not.
Storytelling skills, I mean, my goodness, they've been developed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Those skills never go away and they always need to be developed. So again, it's a real celebration of stories and a celebration of who we are and where we came from.
So we've involved multiple primary schools in the Southend area and invited them in to be, yes, audience members for the piece of theatre, but also to connect with the Southend Museum's education department, and the children arrive and have workshops and learn a little bit more about the period itself, when the piece is set, and learn a little bit more about their own history, about the place they live. So in actual fact, it's multiple partnerships coming together and learning about the past.
And then it became a private house. And this is one of the lords of the manor. This is Daniel Robert Stratton.
I think the children here are going to be producing their own newspaper and thinking themselves back into the sort of turn of the last century. Newspapers were still very much on a sort of historic high at that stage. So I was introducing them to two different eras of papers, to papers as they are now, and it's basically just about everything is done by computer, and comparing it with the background, the newspaper background, as to how it would have been at the turn of the century, when newspapers were still printed on what was considered amazing technology, these vast rotary presses, and people were still amazed at the speed of newspapers and the way that you get news around the world in a day. Now, of course, we expect it to be around the world in a few seconds.
We'll have a go at doing our own recording. Okay, we'll do it wax cylinder style. Now these wax cylinders, they're quite old and quite rare. Now the Priory itself is a really great venue for education, because there's three ways I think we can look at it. We can look at it the monastic Tudor aspect, which complements our building at South Church Hall very, very nicely indeed. And some schools actually visit both in one trip, which is great fun. We can look at Victorian life, and we can also look at really how people lived and do a compare and contrast. The different lives of people who lived here at different periods. So we get a lot of schools who want to come along and visit.
Stratton family, of course, were deeply involved in the civic life of the town. So the children would have been, every evening when they talked to their parents, they would have been picking up things from them about what was going on out there. It was quite a sheltered life in the Priory, but it was not a sheltered town. So they weren't, in journalistic terms, they weren't short of material. So I was trying to get that across to them, the imperative of getting a story, of never missing a good story.
By learning about the past, the present becomes clearer. And then onwards to the future, and exercise that understanding and go on to do whatever it is they want to do, inspired by the past and inspired by their understanding of the present.
Thank you!
No problem at all. Thank you very much indeed. You have been simply splendid children and a credit to your school.
My nerves, already shattered from overwork in India, were stretched taut. And although I am brave enough in the daylight, I'm an awful coward in the dark. To see that hand swing slowly over my head, those awful fingers resting on my skin, my nose, I tell you I was almost driven mad. But somehow, summoning up my wit and strength, I reached out with shaking fingers and seized the vile, ghostly apparition.
The writings of the original Scratton children demonstrate a huge sophistication of language, and it's interesting for children to come and witness those particular stories and compare what the children back in the Edwardian times and how they were writing and how they write now too, and maybe draw inspiration from what they hear. The children were, in essence, being influenced by the writers of their period. And so within some of the stories you can hear Conan Doyle, you can definitely hear Kipling, and some of the theatre they bring to their stories is evident too. The Scratton family were going to the theatre maybe sometimes twice a week down in Southend at the Empire. And we can see elements of melodrama, of music hall, and even an inkling of the new drama that was coming in at that period through the likes of George Bernard Shaw. Their pen and the product of their pen, what they wrote, is revealing a lot about the period. So how fascinating for a child to look back and see these revelations and these connections. And then maybe take some of these connections that were made by the Scratton children and apply them to their own writing. The script itself included reference to the Scrattons playing out the role of journalist or interviewer and interviewee. And a lot of information is about their own characteristics, part of that section of the Priory Times. We're not sure whether it's true or whether it's an impression they're giving of each other.
Which feature story from the Priory Times is going to get an airing first? Get us started.
The blood well.
The piece itself has a core cast of professionals who are playing the members of the Scratton family. And their particular narrative that the professionals are dealing with works in a sort of parallel to the community actors and students.
The bleeding hair.
Hearty scones.
The devil's motor.
As usual,
Devil's motor.
the loudest.
The Scratton professional cast are playing in 1914, the students are approximately 1905. But then there are community actors too who've come directly from the Southend community itself, who are playing servants who are attending on the professional cast's characters too, and opening doors and bringing tea. And so via these community players, we're linking two time periods really together for the audience.
I have one great love in my life, and one great ambition, and the two are married together, more's the pity. My passion, motor cars. My overriding ambition, my ultimate aim, to win the great race from London to Brighton.
The Devil's Motor is one of those standout stories in the Priory Times that just seems to be a beautifully edited piece of nonsense, actually, Gothic nonsense almost. The Devil's Motor deals with a megalomaniac millionaire who's obsessed with motor cars, and of course the well-to-do of that period of history in Edwardian times were buying motor cars left, right and centre.
Money is boring. It's your soul I want. That's my price. You understand? When you die, I want your soul.
And this chap wants to win the London to Brighton race. One day, the devil visits him.
Wouldn't animal blood do instead? No, it must be human blood and from 3 of your friends. Only by following these instructions will you win. Now, this is what I will do.
And a deal is struck. A soul for a fast car.
A bargain with the devil was the best thing I ever did.
And so he has to commit murders to fill the car with blood. And then he goes on to win the race. And but at the end of the race, he's found stone dead at his wheel.
Strange things start to happen. What do we have next, Edith?
The Unknown Thing by Tim McCarty. I'll play Isabel, Humphrey if you play Ernest, and Peggy if you please play Old Nurse Thompson.
The Unknown Thing is a delightful piece of ghostly melodrama where a couple move into a haunted mansion and things start to go wrong for them.
Flinging herself into my arms and shaking all over. What she told me made my blood run cold. She said there was this thing.
And there's a mysterious and slightly suspicious nurse, Compton, who seems to survive this piece, and we think it's probably her who did it. But unfortunately, the young couple end up in horrible circumstances, murdered and in a pool of their own blood.
My brother, Charles, he's had an accident. He fell from his horse while hunting and his neck is broken. He's still alive, but the doctors don't hold out much hope.
Charles was 12 years his junior, but they were devoted to each other. I ran into the house and sent a servant to order a dog cart at once, and another one to pack some food. I told him to go as he passed to his brother's side.
I may stay overnight.
The Bleeding Hand has a very Conan Doyle feel to it. You can imagine Sherlock Holmes when he first receives someone in his apartment and deciding whether to actually take the job of investigating their mystery or not, and asks them generally to tell me what the problem is. So it has the very much of a voice of someone recalling from the past what had happened. We have a gentleman who goes to his club and he's fallen upon by a stranger with a strange request.
Last round, and I was losing hopelessly. But then I noticed that he had a card concealed under his hand. I protested, and as I did so, I reached over the table and grasped his hand in mine.
And it involves a severed hand that belonged to this stranger's father, and it ends up coming out of the gentleman's bedroom wall and being retrieved, and it has that sort of nonsensical, almost surrealist feel to it, a piece of childhood nonsense.
But now, to settle this business, you have in your possession something belonging to me, my father's hand.
But that's a lie. What can you mean?
I mean simply this. 9 months ago, you bought, for a trifling sum, a preserved human hand. Is this correct?
The doors of the Priory will open to the public to come and watch the piece of theatre. Tickets are free, and we feel that's an important part of the funding process in lots of ways. You're giving the project to the people of the area to come and be witness to. There will be 4 shows throughout the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And we hope that the public, when they see the piece, have the same sense of enjoyment and connection that the children throughout the week have shown. That sense of, oh, I didn't know that about this place, or I didn't really know that about this particular family. They may have heard of the Scrattons, but did they really know much about them? And maybe that'll bring a sense of looking at this building now and this museum with fresh eyes, and maybe even inspire them to investigate their own family of that period too, and see what connections they can make with the past and bring to the present.
It's really exciting. I mean, we've known, obviously, and we've loved the Priory Times for many years, the paper copy, and reading them you do get a great feel for the Scratton family. It does bring them to life, but actually seeing actors, seeing people in the building, moving through the building, seeing the children moving through the building, enjoying the performances. That's been really quite special.
I've taken a great sense of taking actual real fiction created by real people and acting it out in the place where they lived. And I've taken a sense of how powerful that can be. But I personally, and I think the cast too, would arguably say that we've definitely heard the actual voices of the people we're working with from the past come through these stories that we've been working with.
Having just spent some time with two of my grandchildren, I can recognise how much more imagination children then had than I think they have now.
And I like the way they express the period in a house. You could get very good idea from the life in a house and the dress and the way of living, including all the servants and upstairs, downstairs life.
It was really good and it was nice to see all the maids and all the servants and everything.
I like the way that they went, it was very great.
We didn't have TVs, we didn't have what we got today as we know as society, so they made their own entertainment. So it's something that you could believe happens. And it was not just on a book or on a TV programme, it was more real people acting. The history was there, you could feel the sense of the history when you was actually there and the people were playing the characters.